Action.
All right, kids. This is the story of Henry VIII and his 6 wives. Henry VIII was King of England, and he married a woman named Catherine of Aragon. And they were married for a really long time. And he needed a son to carry the throne of England.
What about a baby?
I'll get to that. So Henry VIII married Catherine of Aragon, and they were married for a long time, but they couldn't have a baby boy. She had a daughter named Mary. Well, Henry VIII fell in love with a woman named Anne Boleyn. And Anne Boleyn said, I don't need to deal with you. And Catherine of Aragon's like, you totally do. And Anne Boleyn's like, no, I don't. And Henry's like, no, really, she doesn't.
What?
And so you know what he did? He said, bye. And he said goodbye to Catherine of Aragon. So Henry VIII marries Anne Boleyn.
What about he taking his head off?
I'll get to that. So Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, they try to have a baby so bad, and they have a daughter named Elizabeth, but she's not giving him a son. So do you know what he does?
What?
He cuts her head off. Bye. So Anne Boleyn, head cut off. So you know what he does next?
What?
He still needs to have a son. So Henry VIII says, I'm going to get married again. Pretty much immediately, actually. And he marries Jane Seymour.
The only one he truly loved.
I mean, it's up in the air.
Rude.
So Henry VIII and Jane Seymour, they get married. And they are in love. And Jane Seymour gives him a baby. And do you know what else happens? She dies. And then Henry VIII is all alone. Oh no! But he has a son named Edward. So what do you think Henry VIII does?
What?
He gets married again. And he marries a woman from Cleves. And her name is Anne. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
He marries Anne of Cleves. But do you know what he does? It's pretty bad. He says, ew, you're gross and ugly and you smell. I don't want to marry you anymore. And so they get a divorce. So he divorces Anne of Cleves. And after Anne of Cleves, Henry VIII says, I still feel like I need more kids. So he marries a really young girl who also happens to be Anne Boleyn's cousin named Catherine Howard. We like Catherines in this family. So they're having fun. They're in love. Well, then Catherine Howard makes some pretty legit mistakes and gets caught. And do you know what Henry VIII does?
What?
Cuts off her head. She dies. So there's Catherine Howard. But Henry VIII is still feeling like he needs more kids. So I bet you can guess what he does next, can't you?
Yeah.
He gets married to a woman named Catherine Parr. And they're kind of in love, more him than her. And then you know what happens? He dies.
Catherine?
No, Henry this time. It's kind of legit. So Catherine Parr, she lives a life. It's kind of convoluted. She also dies young. But anyway, the big story goes down to Henry VIII's kids. So I'm going to recycle one of these. And remember the first Catherine?
Yeah.
Catherine of Aragon? Well, Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon had a daughter named Mary. And they called her Bloody Mary. But
Why?
look at the whole thing. But then he also had a daughter named Elizabeth with Anne Boleyn. And he had cut off her mom's head. But the most important child at that time was the son, ready? Edward. So Edward becomes king. Yay, Edward!
King of England.
King of England. The future is secure, kind of. But you know what happens to Edward?
What?
He dies. So then there's 2 daughters remaining. And which one do you think becomes queen next? Mary or Elizabeth?
Elizabeth.
Nope, you're wrong. It's Mary, Bloody Mary. And she doesn't do so great at it. And then what happens to Mary? She dies. Yeah. And then the most amazing thing happens, the thing that no one thought would happen, and it is Queen Elizabeth, the first, the coolest queen ever. But Elizabeth, she's seen all this crazy stuff that just happened, right?
Yeah.
So she never gets married. She never has any babies, even cute ones like Charlotte. No babies, no marriage at all.
I'm not cute.
No, you're no. Also,
No.
Della, you're adorable. Okay, Fair point. So Elizabeth, the best queen of England in the entire universe, after reigning for a super long time that I'm not exactly sure of, 30 probably years. Do you know what happens to Elizabeth?
What?
She dies.
Please!
And then, do you know who becomes king? James the First of Scotland. And he kind of does a cool thing, but the big part of the story is that's when Scotland and England become one. And that is where we get Great Britain today. The end. Good night.
Whoop, 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 whoop.